A Broome County jury was released Friday morning after no verdict was reached on murder and arson charges for a fatal house fire that happened in Binghamton in 2011. 12 News' Daniel Curran joins us live from the site of that fire with more details on this result and what's next. Daniel?
Yeah, that's right, Nicole. During the 7-day trial of Jeremiah Robb, who was arrested in 2023 on charges of murder in the second degree and arson in the first degree, jurors heard from key witnesses, fire investigators, and Binghamton police detectives. Those involved with the case are still looking for answers 14 years later. Just before 10 o'clock Friday morning, a Broome County jury presented a note to Judge Carol Cacciola stating they were, quote, hopelessly deadlocked and in agreement their votes will not change. This coming after days of deliberations in the trial of Jeremiah Robb of New Milford, Pennsylvania. Robb was arrested in 2023 in connection to a 2011 fire on Milford Street that killed 17-year-old Jeffrey Asa. The jury was ultimately discharged as a result of this note. Robb's ex-girlfriend, who testified at the trial and is said to be the only person he confessed to the crime to, told another man about the incident in 2017. He then informed another person who subsequently contacted the Binghamton Police Department. Captain Corey Miner with the Binghamton Police Detective Division testified that in 2023, he, along with another BPD detective and a chief detective in Susquehanna County, went to Robb's New Milford home to interview him. According to testimony, Robb confessed to starting the Milford Street fire that night. He was then brought to the Susquehanna County Public Safety Building, where he again confessed to starting the fire, which was captured via body camera footage. This led to his arrest. Key evidence presented including Robb detailing items found on the porch of 20 Milford Street, such as a swing set and a milk carton inside the recycling bin. The homeowner of 20 Milford Street later confirmed that these items were on the porch on St. Patrick's Day 2011 when the fire occurred. Robb's attorney questioned detectives on why a body camera was not used during the initial meeting with Robb at his home in 2023. The attorney also pointed out that no witness had seen the fire start. The defense also argued that Robb could have been pressured into falsely confessing the crime. Now, after dismissing the jury earlier this morning, Judge Cacciola said she would meet with prosecutors and the defense to discuss where to go from here. The assistant district attorney who prosecuted this case told 12 News they plan to continue legal action, including a possible retrial. Live in Binghamton, Daniel Curran, 12 News, Broome County.